Race methodically rummages through this derelict safe house, Bartney's last words echoing in his ears. My God. We killed him. It's our fault. We killed him. Those words echoed in Race's mind, but he put the image of the body on the pavement below out of his mind so that he could focus. He had to find something in this apartment, and he had to do so fast. Them sirens. Someone's called for the police. You dumb bastard, someone's called for the police. And this is your fault. Now, Race was quickly moving through wardrobes, drawers, cupboards. His mind was a flurry. His heart was a flurry with emotions of what he's just done. But he knew he had to keep his cool. He knew he had to stay focused. He couldn't fix what he had done. But panicking now, falling into emotional heap, would only make things worse. He moved to the bed. He moved under the bed. He looked into the side bedside table, slowly moving through the house, trying to find something that could help. Listen, Race. I know it was an accident. I know you did not mean to do that. But we put that man in danger for this case. It is our fault. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to take control of the scene, do what I can. But when I come up here, if you're here, I'm arresting you. If you're not here, I don't give a damn, to be perfectly honest. But know that when we come back up here, we are not working together. And fair enough, too. Race had pulled Barney into this case. She had elected to come along. She wanted to be a part of this. But now, because of his random, almost dice roll-y type behavior, Race had put blood on both of their hands. And Barney couldn't accept that. So now she was coming. But she left him a moment to try and find something in this apartment that would give him a lead. He moved along to the bathroom. Nothing there. It was all just random detritus. He moved to the kitchen. He was beginning to lose hope. He needed to find some sort of lead that might help him find where the bald-headed lady was. So much had gone on so far, but if anyone could give him answers, it was her. And then he found it in the kitchen. Something unusual, a little packet. It looked like it had been sealed in sort of like a plasticky type stuff, something very new, very modern, something very American. But when he took the packet, when he opened it, inside a smell hit him that was just beautiful. It was cinnamon, it was cloves, it was all sorts of gorgeous spices, just hit his nose. This wasn't something that you normally find in a New York apartment. This might be his lead. Hello, my name is Evan and welcome back to The Big Drive. This is part 7. My goodness, this series is going along. This is a sort of a dice rolling RPG in the vein of, Dungeons and Dragons, but it's based on Ironsworn. Ironsworn by Shaun Tompkins, an excellent game. Normally fantasy, swords and sandals, but I've tweaked a few things. We're turning it into a detective crime story. I'm telling the story to you. I'm the storyteller, the narrator, but I'm also the player. I don't know how this story is going to end. We basically just roll on charts. We have conversations with these rolled characters, and it's going to be our job to put those pieces together just like a real fake movie detective. So this is part 7. We're well into it by now. If you want to catch up, I did do a notebook episode where I caught up all the way to episode 5, and then 6 follows on after that. My goodness, was last episode dramatic. Race, our detective, who's investigating the death of Templeton by accident, basically. He's following leads, trying to find out what happened. He was killed viciously and brutally. One important suspect was the bald-headed lady, seen the night that he died, a couple of times the night he died. But he had another lead, this apartment that belonged to the bald-headed lady. There was a frightened man in there who was afraid of some terrible authority coming along and kidnapping him. And so what Race decided to do, what I, as the player, decided to do, was use him as bait. Basically, I went to one of our suspects, a pompous British man called Patrick Instow, and I let him know that we knew where this guy was hiding, and sure enough, British agents turned up to kidnap him. Maybe it was related, maybe not, who knows, we'll find out later. But as we then tried to help him escape this frightened man, we don't even know his name, as we tried to help him escape through the window and up on the roof, he slipped. And Race failed to catch him. He fell and he died. I didn't expect that to happen. So he's dead. Totally Race's fault, 100%. And now he's not only lost a human being, but also now he's lost his partner. He picked Bartney had joined him along the way in this investigation. But unsurprisingly, she's now like, no, I don't want any part of this. You've just killed a guy. Like, not just that he slipped and missed him, like that's an accident, but the fact they put him in harm's way in the first place. So she's out. I did have a part of the Ironsworn series, lots of little ability cards. These are kind of the leveling up system that they have. I had her as a companion. No more. She's gone. There's no way that she's going to help him at the moment unless I can get another companion or I can change her mind. I doubt it. So now he finds himself in the apartment and he's looking for a clue in that apartment where the frightened man was hiding that might give him a lead to try and then find where the bald-headed lady is. Basically, it's at the point where we just need to talk to her. We haven't been able to find her this whole time. Surely she knows something. So what I did was I went into the apartment, I rolled a regular Ironsworn gather information roll. I got a weak hit. So basically I went over to one of our random tables and I rolled for an item. It had to be something that made things a little bit more complicated than normal, so it was really obvious and stuff like that. I skipped over and rolled again. And what I rolled was a packet of, it says foreign spice, so something not to that local area, so not local to New York, which is pretty easy to do. So some sort of spice was found, and this is the only clue that we now have as we forward this investigation. So get comfortable, get a nice drink, let's get going. So Race has this packet of spice. That's what we know now. So Race is going to turn it around, he's going to have a look at this packet, and he's going to check to see if there's like a label on it or like an address to where this packet came from. Like I said, it's sealed up in sort of like a plastic American packet. So it seems to be something not from overseas. Like as in the spice is, but the packet itself looks like it's been sealed up somewhere. I said plastic. I don't know if they really had plastic in 1919. Some sort of seal foil thing. I don't know. But basically packaged in like a factory or something. So does it have an address or like a brand on it? I'm going to roll on the Ironsworn Oracles table. 50-50. 50-50. If it's 51 or greater, it's yes. 75. So yeah, it does have a label on it. So it has a little label on it. What does that label say? Race looks at the packet and he's going to see what this logo, this label says. I'm going to use Matt Davies' random tables to decide. Firstly, the name of the company. Just I'm going to pick a random town name. It's called the 73 Cannons Ashby. It's Cannons Ashby. And what does Cannons Ashby do for a business? So 16 Cannon Ashby's Oats. So this packet says Cannon Ashby's Oats on it. With that name in mind, Race, he might have a lead. He needs to go find a phone book. Do they have phone books back then? They must have an address books though. So quickly, Race rushes not to the door. No, he rushes to the door and goes down the stairs. He sees the action down there. There's police officers. They've arrived and they're now at that crime scene, moving people away. And now he can hear them coming up the stairs. No, he's not going down the stairs. So he quickly rushes back into the apartment. He gets into the fire escape. And he slowly and methodically, kind of looking as if he's like a little bit like a confused bystander looking, seeing what's going on. He goes down the stairs. Should we roll a face danger? Oh, face danger. So we're going to face danger. I don't... Oh, this is not a bad idea. So he's going down the fire escape. He's sort of... That's suspicious. But he's looking at... Trying to see what's going on. So he's trying to be like, oh, I'm just a local. Just, oh, what's going on? No, what's happening? So he's being shadowy. He's being sly. +2 to my roll. Oh, okay. So I got a 6 + 2 is 8. But it's against a 9 and a 1. So it's a weak hit. So we succeed, but endure troubling cost. Okay, so I'm going to say that we suffer a shot to momentum. So basically he loses some momentum because the police do see him, but he then sort of just gawps and just goes like, oh, what's going on? Oh, honey, bring out the kids. They're going to want to see this. So he's like really like trying to sell this. So it means he has to slow down and methodically sort of get down that fire escape. It wastes time. He actually has to linger longer than he wants to. But he manages to slowly slip away, but losing some time in the process. Not ideal, and the police have seen him, so they're aware of his face. Obviously, Bartney knows him, but now a police officer kind of notices, and maybe even like notes that down for later. But we lose some momentum. So Race gets down onto the street level. He heads to the nearest diner, I guess. He heads to the nearest diner and he goes to the nearest diner and goes and asks for like, do you have a directory? Do you have anything like that? Businesses that sell oats. Do you have any oats businesses? So he goes to try and find that out. He asks for like a business directory, just some streamline things a little bit. They get out the directory as he's thumbing through. He asks, excuse me, have you heard of a business called Cannon's Ashby Oats? Is that one of your businesses that send you the oats for your porridge or whatever it is? So he asks. We'll do a gather information. He's very eloquent. He sort of talks it through with them, the type of thing he's looking for, and he manages with his wits to get a 6 to a 6 and a 9, which is very frustrating. Look, I'm just going to burn momentum, so I'm now back down to 2, which kind of sucks, to get a weak hit. So with that gather information, it gives information, but okay, and creates a new danger or complication. So when he asks about Cannon Ashby's oats, the person at the diner responds with, oh yes, darling, I remember Cannon Ashby's oats. We haven't bought from them in years. They used to sell to us, but they've gone out of business quite a long time ago. No, they don't exist, I'm fairly certain. We now get our oats from plain Bran and Sons, I'm pretty sure. So the business is out of business, but those spices are fresh. Like I know spices keep, I know that, but they're not like clumped up. They smell as if they'd only just been crushed. So this business is out of business. What's going on there? Right. Well, can you tell me their address? Do you know where they came from? Like, are they in the city? Is there a warehouse nearby? Oh, Stu, do you remember where the oats came from? The old place? Not the new place, the old place. You do? You picked up from there, didn't you? Oh, you do know. Oh, you do know. Oh, lovely. It's over that way. So with it's over that way, they give the address. They'd say where the place was originally. It is this packing place probably happens elsewhere, but there is a warehouse that the company once owned that again is closed up. Like business is about to get booming. We're about to hit into the roaring 20s, but this warehouse, no one's seen anyone go in and out of there for ages. So with that information in mind, Race bundles off, again keeping his head down. The police are probably not going to pick him up at this stage because Bartney she knows he did the wrong thing. She's not going to deal with his nonsense anymore, but he's not necessarily a wanted fugitive. But I guess the guilt of what he's done still weighs on Race. So he's keeping his head down, he's looking over his shoulder as he goes. He also knows that there's these British security operatives on the loose. And now that he's come out against them, there's no promise that Instow, if it is Instow behind all this, doesn't now want him dead. So he makes his way down to the address of where this warehouse is. we're going to have a look at what this warehouse is like. Race jumps into a cab. And according to the Ironsworn roll table, the location descriptor, it says remote. So when he gives the address to the cabbie, because he's going to jump into a cabbie, because he realises a bit further away than he thought. Plus the cabbie will know where this address is. The cabbie's like, oh, that's ages away. That's heaps far out. That's way up. Like you have to basically almost leave New York proper in order to get to there. Okay, so take me there, I guess. And I guess with all this sort of complication, the cabbie's happy enough to let him do that. So they begin to drive to this remote warehouse for what was formerly an oats business. They get out there, and sure enough, it's remote. Like I'm picturing, I'm sort of in The Godfather, where you go out a little while and you end up in some swamps, and you kind of see the city at the distance, but now you're out, almost begins to get rural all of a sudden. So I don't know New York that well. I don't know how legitimate that geography is, but that's kind of the deal here. They get out of the main city proper, and this is just a little tucked away corner. And there's just a strip of warehouses near some little docks. Maybe at one point the government had planned to put in a whole thing here, maybe private industry, but it didn't really work. No, it was too far out. It never would have worked. So now there's these sort of abandoned warehouses, maybe a few abandoned houses, and that's what they pull up to. And Race is starting to have second thoughts about going out into the middle of nowhere. He's even given the cabbie some side eye, yeah, you are a cabbie, right? So he pays him, he gets out, and he approaches the warehouse. Is there anybody around? It's remote, but is there anybody else around? Let's roll, let's say, unlikely. But we know that the bald-headed lady could be around. 50-50. Above 50, yes, we can see some people. 94. So as he gets out of the cab, as he looks at these warehouses, he can see some people near one of the doors to the warehouse. And as he looks at the warehouse, sure enough, that warehouse above has Cannon's oats above the warehouse, all faded and no longer in use. But there it is. There's Cannon Oats. Let's go see what's in there. So Rates approaches these people standing at the door, and in my imagination they're looking a bit like bouncers. Maybe not strictly like obvious bouncers like that sort of thing, but they're obviously guarding the door. And he approaches and they notice him. Race is not going to be sneaky here. He's going to come across and he's going to say to them, "Excuse me, I was wondering if I could see the proprietor of your little business here." "Who says we have a business here? This could just be our standing spot." Standing spot, very good. "Look, I recently found some of your product in the possession of a man, and I wanted to have some questions about that product." "Are you accusing us of something? This place is strictly dry." "Dry may not be the right word, considering your oats company seem to be selling some form of spice. And I'm sad to say that the man carrying said spice is dead. Look, could you just talk to your boss and tell Miss Mayhem that I have information that she might find useful? If you can't do that, then I'm going to go in there myself somehow." Was that a threat? I don't know if that was a threat. He's a bit of a threat. But he's calling them out. He's saying that, "I know this place has got spice and not that." So and the guy that had it died. So he's laying information and he's very clearly saying what he knows. I'm going to say it's a wit roll. So he's saying what he knows. He wants to get in. Let's see if these guys play along. It's going to be a coercion, I suppose. So it's a compel. But I'm going to say again, it's more wit. I know this, let me in. So let's see what we got. 3 to a 6 against a 4 and a 3. I think that's the first strong hit I've had in ages. So it's a strong hit. It works really well, and we get a little bit of momentum to boot. So the two guards look at each other. They give Race the stink eye, but one of them goes inside. A few moments later, the door opens again. Race has been standing out there with this other bouncer. Nothing but the wind blowing. You think that maybe Race would try and say something to break the conversation, but at this stage he's in no mood for idle chit-chat. So when the door opens, it's somewhat of a relief, especially when the other person says, "Follow me." So what's it like on the inside? Like what is this place? It's not an oats factory, obviously. It's all remote, it's all desolate, but inside, what is it? So let's do some more rolls in our little location table. So what is this place? It was a factory, so I guess that's sort of like in the ambiance. A lot of some industrial machinery and stuff like that. But that was some time ago. All these things look very old, maybe even pushed to the side. But the rest of the place, on the descriptor chart, it says sort of high. And if we go to that's a 2. We've got roll a 2. Interpret it as this: as they go inside, the place is actually really neat now, and as they enter, it's a highly efficient, highly well run, highly effective little racket, like a little business place. He goes in and he sees there's actually some people like over near a typewriter typing away. There's only one typewriter, but they're typing efficiently. There's people there with notes in a line waiting to talk to this person. Looks over at the other corner and there's actually 2 or 3 telephones lined up and people talking on those telephones. There are some people maybe in the corner, a little bit huddled mass-y. They're sort of sitting there, stressed, tired, with a little bit of luggage. That's all they've got with them. But the place is sort of buzzing. As well, there's also like some sort of maybe coat hangers with all this sort of clothing on it and some bedding there for anyone who might need it. So it's highly organized, highly efficient. I'm adding into this sort of some context stuff. We had that bloke who was on the run in hiding in that safe home. So this appears to be some sort of nerve center for the people on the run and now hiding. And these are the things that are going on. Not a lot of people, but the equipment's there, and the people who are manning that equipment are clearly doing the job of like 3 people. But they're doing it well, and there's not a lot of people in there. And as he goes in, he approaches who he assumes to be Janet Mayhew. So we know that according to Mark Colden, Janet is an attractive enough lady that she has a shaved head, but this is the first time Race has gotten a look at her. So we'll roll and we'll have a look. We got 57, and let's see what he makes of her. But we'll have the caveat that she's bold and she looks relatively attractive, but she's short. She's short and actually rather stockily built. Like she's quite well built. She's very strongly built. Her ears in particular stand out. She has, because of her shaved head, her ears do stand out a little bit. It almost looks a bit silly, but she wears them. You know what I mean? So she's there. She's got her sort of artist outfit on, but she's affecting like an adventurer look. Like sort of, you would think that she's like Amelia Earhart type, but not quite as cartoony, but that kind of like, she's got a bit of a scarf going and some pockets, you know. But no hair. Again, the ears look pretty funny because they look a bit big, but she is a relatively energetic looking person. And so as Race approaches, you realise that this is probably Janet Mayhew. Now I'm going to need to roll on a few more tables to sort of figure out her personality. I think I'll just use the Ironsworn personality table, considering we already know that she's an artist. We already know that she's somehow involved in this afraid person trying to get out of the place that they were afraid at. So we've got some ideas of this character already. So we'll just use the Ironsworn to determine some of her characteristics in this conversation. But basically, Race approaches her, and he can't help but say, Janet Mayhew, although I presume that is just a pseudonym, am I right? My name is my own business, as is your name. Who the hell are you? My name is David Race. I'm investigating the death of Patrick Templeton. I have it on good authority from Patrick Instow, the neighbour next door to Templeton's apartment, and, of course, Mark Colden, that you were there the night he died. So I've come here to ask you some questions about that. Whether you have witnesses or not, you have come into my place demanding questions I do not need to answer. You say that you have news of the death of one of my clients. What happened? Your client was killed by British operatives. He's dead. He fell from his window trying to escape. Damn. That's another one. I'm sorry. I really am. But look, I was only investigating your friend because I was looking into the death of Patrick Templeton. You clearly know him. How do you know him? How do you... Race takes a closer look at Janet Mayhearn. Is there a resemblance there? You remember back in the crime scene, we found a family portrait. It was Templeton, and we assumed his wife. And we saw Templeton, he had the burnt hands. Is the woman standing before us a shaved-headed version of the lady in the photo? So, look, I'm going to say 50-50 on the Ask the Oracle chart. I know it's actually unlikely, really, but it was conspicuous. It was there on the floor. Is she the woman? 50 or greater? 50-50. 50 or greater. Let's have a look. 58. As Race looks at her face, he realizes that although some of that sort of affectation, the hair, the makeup, all of that is clearly gone. But there's something in the brow, there's something in the jaw, and he realizes something. Templeton's more than an acquaintance, isn't he? What? Is he your brother? I suppose in a way we fought like brother and sister at the end there, but no, he wasn't my brother. But he was very dear to me. What's all this to you? Why are you investigating Templeton's death in the first place? Well, isn't that the million-dollar question now, isn't it? But it's not why I am investigating his death. The real question is, why are you poking around the crime scene the night that he dies? Multiple times you were spotted. So what were you doing there? Again, I ask the questions here. I appreciate your audacity, but my business is my business. And while you're here, your business is my business too. So, I'm going to ask you one last time. Why are you investigating the death of Patrick Instow? Because I was mistaken for my brother. It was a damn accident. I was brought in, I thought it would be a lark, a bunch of excitement. But then the further along I get, all I find is fear and intimidation, and before my very eyes, I'm assuming an innocent man dies. I find out that my governments are involved in some sort of heinous kidnapping. I can't let this go now. I know too much. That's why I'm investigating this scene. That's why I'm investigating this crime. And I need help. Right then. Tell me what you know. I know that your little operation is acting against the British government. That they have some sort of racket going, sneaking away and taking and kidnapping people in America that they don't want here and taking them back to England to do God knows what. I heard that off of a certain captain down by the docks. And I know that you have safe houses that apparently you move people around to. I know that Templeton was on business terms with you, at least. And I know you have a mole in your ranks. Okay, so that's just some interpretive leap that Race is taking. I think that's what this is about. There's some sort of double agentry going on here. Maybe even triple agentry going on here. So you say you got brought in on this case at the death of Templeton, what, 2 days ago now? You seem to have gathered quite a lot in that time. Very interesting. What else is interesting is you still haven't answered my question. What were you doing there? You were seen with Templeton in the bar. He gave you a briefcase. Later, you were seen approaching his apartment, entering, leaving later. And the next morning he was found dead. You could understand that logically, you are a prime suspect right now. And it's not just me, curious. You were witnessed by the police. They have seen you too. So, tell me, what were you doing there that night? You're right, me and Mr. Templeton are now on business terms, you might say. I was indeed trying to close a business transaction, and I wanted to make sure that that transaction would go through. So I took steps to not only conclude our business amicably, but also I wanted to check later that he was indeed concluding his business as promised. You see, Mr. Race, in my line of work, I've got to make sure that everything is safe and secure. Otherwise, we have sad events like has occurred apparently earlier today. I need to make sure that I know I can trust people. And on that topic, you believe that there is a mole in my organization. If that is the case, do you know who it is? As you said earlier, I've only been on this case for a few days. I only have suspicions, circumstantial evidence, one might say. And the only people I really know involved in this organization is yourself, in some way, Mr. Templeton, and Colden. Now, Colden also tried to shoot me a couple of days ago, so you can call me biased, but I did find it curious that he was willing to give me information that pointed to you when he didn't have to. I wonder if he's not the mole, that he at least wants to put a fly in your ointment. You're right, Mr. Race. You do only know a few people in my organization, so I do think that you're slightly biased in your assessment. Mr. Colden is one of the more loyal members of my band. I've known him for years. Why on earth would you say that he is the mole, other than your gut feeling? He also was at the New York hotel the night that Templeton died. He was there in the lobby. Was that a part of your plan? I'd imagine that you had your in as the artist coming to collect your artwork. So why did he need to be on the table? Why did he need to be in disguise watching what was going on? And then, of course, as I said, he informed me of your very existence. I wouldn't know that you existed if it wasn't for him. Furthermore, I did observe him at your safe house where this poor fellow had died earlier. So he also knew you were there. On top of that, is he a greedy man? Would you say so? Again, I don't know him personally beyond the barrel of a gun, but he has some question marks lingering over his head. Question marks indeed. And just be aware, Mr. Race, everything you've said has come with a question mark. Well, how's this for question marks? That briefcase, Captain Darcy, they must be related. They must be. You are keeping track of individuals who are currently being surveyed by shadowy forces, potentially in the British government. You can't be taking too many risks. Does Mr. Darcy work for you? Does Mr. Templeton work for you? Is he giving you information as to who is being targeted and where they're being dropped off? Mr. Templeton didn't see the world like his compatriots did. He realized that in this world there was indeed right and wrong, not just loyalty. At least, that's what he told us. That's what he told you. But you didn't trust him. You said before that you wanted to check that he was following through with what he said he was doing. Was it you? That place? That sleeping draft in the air vent? Or one of your lackeys, perhaps? Were you expecting to find him asleep? So then you could check his papers or something of the sort. In my line of work, you can't take chances. You've got to make sure that you can know that everyone is safe. It's not just my life on the line. I do resort to nefarious means. But I tell you, I've yet to actually kill someone. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but it just hasn't happened yet. So you're saying you're not a suspect? Well, you're suspect, but that you didn't commit the murder. What evidence, what proof can you have to cross you off the list? Do you have an alibi? What? Mr. Race, are you asking, did I have an alibi for me breaking into his room while he was drugged? Is that what you're honestly asking me? Look, enough of this silly back and forwards game. You keep saying that you have to be safe, you have to be secure, that the lives of all these people here are at risk. You said that. 2 men are dead because of this little escapade. One of them, by your own admission, you once cared for. So enough. I need you to talk to me. We're in deep here, but I might have a way of making this right. I know people who could deal with people like Patrick Instow, but I can't do that unless I have concrete evidence. Will you answer a straight question for everyone here's sake? Janet Mayhearn is taken aback by this. He's right. He's lied. He doesn't know anyone in positions of authority. Maybe his brother. But he can't call in too many favours with him. But he's right. And he can see that this is registered on Mayhearn's face. She doesn't say anything. She just gives a little nod. I have one question. One question that I need to know. How did you know Templeton? How did you know him? Not just now, your professional relationship, but it's deeper than that, isn't it? You knew him from the past. You knew about his burnt hands. How did you know Templeton? Templeton and I knew each other. We've known each other for a very long time, and it never got romantic. But I loved him. And he loved me, in his way. We had grown up together, to some extent. Not as children, but we both came into our own working at a British consulate. Specifically a British consulate in Egypt. We'd been working there for some time. Anyway, we knew what we were doing was right. At least that's what we thought. We knew it was the right thing, what we were doing expanding the empire, bringing civilization to the world. That's how he saw it. That's how he saw it. There was an uprising in Egypt, in Cairo. One of a dozen. There was constantly uproar for one reason or another, legitimate reasons. But the British would usually stay at arm's length for most of them, except this one threatened the British position in Egypt. And of course, with Suez gone in, that was unacceptable, that risk. So we played our part at the consulate as young, junior sort of operatives to make sure that rebellion was quenched. Brutally quenched. We like to think that we were doing the right thing, but we very clearly weren't. I remember we talked to friends of ours in Cairo, Egyptian friends of ours, religious men, holy men. They would talk with such passion about their beliefs. And I thought that our beliefs were equal to theirs. Our belief in civilization was as great as any belief in any god, but to defend that civilization, we had to go on crusade. And we did. Most of the time it was just simply whispering the right ear here or paying a bribe there, and then you could usually get these rebels swept up and taken away. But this time we did get our hands dirty. We got right in there, talking to people, making sure that this specific riot between these two rebellious factions really kicked off. And then blood was spilled. Innocent people got caught up, and we were branded. Both of us. In the fires of the riot that came later, Templeton burnt his hands. We both had that memory burnt in our minds. The destruction that we wrought. Because we thought what we were doing was right. When it wasn't. After that event, our friendship faded. It wasn't because of the burns. We took the photo because we did genuinely care for one another, and I didn't care about silly things like that. He was worried about it. But as time went on, we did indeed drift apart. I left the service. I couldn't do it anymore. He stayed in. He thought that he would be able to redeem himself, that he could maybe redeem the system. No longer fighting for civilization, but fighting for people. That's what he thought. I thought that too. I left and I got involved in more charity organizations, but in time I became disillusioned with that. And I knew something more proactive had to happen. So when rebellious, dissident individuals flared up and they went on the run from the British Empire, run to places like this, I knew I had to help them. I had to atone for what we had done. And then I met Templeton again. Like I said, he had kept going on through the service. He had climbed the ranks. He had become involved in these kind of recapturing missions. Whether by choice or by fortune, I don't know. But when we met in New York once again, we both realized we had a chance. We had a chance of making up for what we had done in the past. By finding people at risk and keeping them safe. Me on the outside coordinating all of this, him on the inside, feeding us information from the very top. As soon as the decision was made, we knew about it. It was too good to last. You're right, Mr. Ace. There is a mole in our organization. Fitting, considering Templeton was a mole in theirs. Might have been Templeton. He could have been lying to me all this time. But it might be one of my people. So there you go, Mr. Ace. That's how I know Mr. Templeton. And now he's dead. And you claim that you're investigating that death. But I can't do that. As Mayhern says this, Race's eyes begin to look around the room. There's no one in the room who looks like a thug, right? They're all pretty wiry. They look more like academics in some ways. But he notices that some of them do indeed have pistols under their arms, and their attention is shifting towards the conversation, towards Janet specifically, and any signal that she might give. Ms. Mayhern, I understand that you do not trust me. But right now, out of everyone in this entire city, between what you've shared with me, what I saw in that crime scene, what Mr. Instow has told me, what I've gained from the police, out of everyone in this city, I know more than anyone. I'm so close to cracking this. Let me go. I'll find out who killed George. And in doing so, not only will I probably figure out who your mole is, but I'll also bring your friend's ghost to rest. Please let me go. He's trying to compel her, and he is being sincere, but he's very clearly laid out his argument. He does know more than anyone, in theory. Maybe the murderer knows more. And maybe she is the murderer. But he knows a lot. And so he's logically laid out on the line what he is the reason why he thinks he should let him go. So he's going to compel with wit. So that's +3. There's no connection here, so that's not going to help. So, it's a 6! 6, 3, 9 against a 6 and a 5. It succeeds. He does indeed manage to compel her to let him go, and he'll take the momentum. Fine. Mr. Race, you may go. But please understand that you now have not only these British operatives watching you, not only, I'm imagining, the police department watching you, but we'll be watching you too. If you make a wrong move by any of these bodies, you're a dead man. If you make a wrong move by the police or the British operatives and they take you in, you will be a dead man before they can interrogate you and find out what you know. So let's put it succinctly, Mr. Race. Make one wrong move now, and there will be a third body that we can add to our little list lately. Am I understood? I completely understand. And before I go, do a man a favour. You must have a drink around here somewhere. And just like that, we're going to end it for tonight. Okay, so we know a lot now. We do know more or less what's going on here. We've got this sort of overall conspiracy. The British government are kidnapping rebels. Janet is a part of an organisation trying to help protect these people. And George was a part of that. George knew Janet from the past, so he was on the inside feeding information. So he was a double agent against the British for this sort of little rebellious protective organisation that Janet has running. But had he double-crossed her? Had she double-crossed him? Is Mark involved in all of this? Is he the mole? So we've got a lot of information, but it's only really given us more questions. Oh, okay, but that's enough for now. So thank you so much for watching. If you really enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And hopefully, you'll see more of me later. All right, good night. Bye.